Yes, hello, welcome everybody. It's Chris here from the Ministry of Dice. It's another one of my OP kit retrospectives. I'm sticking with the picture-in-picture format, although I've put a new frame on. Thank you so very much to the folks who got in touch with the feedback. I'm glad you enjoyed seeing my face and that I was able to bring it to life a little bit more for you. And thank you for the feedback around the framing and the layout and such like. I hope you appreciate this more comic booky theme that I've gone for. I'm still working on lighting and stuff, so come with me on the journey. Hopefully I'm a little better lit, but I've still got this bad lighting behind me. I'm again recording this during my lunch hour while I'm working from home with my unkempt, crazy lockdown hair, committed to celluloid for all to see on YouTube forever and ever. But here we are, we're back with another OP kit retrospective. I actually misspoke on the last video because I said that Age of Apocalypse was the third and final Uncanny X-Men OP kit, but that's simply not the case. There's a fourth one, and it's this one, Avengers Disassembled. I don't know whether because it was Avengers themed or because one of the dice it uses is from AVX, maybe that's why I got it muddled in my head. But as I was working my way through my binder, I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about this one. And in fact, I've already recorded the next one before this one because I had them out of sync. Anyway, I'm in the weeds. You don't need to know about that. So I'm here to talk about Avengers Disassembled. It's a 3-card set. We've got She-Hulk, Hawkeye, and Scarlet Witch in the set. Just quickly, if this is the first video you've ever seen, OP kits, it stands for Organised Play Kits. WizKids produce these little prize packets for friendly local gaming stores to use at their local level organised play events. They're 3-card prizes. You'll have 2 of the cards you'll get 5 of in the pack, and then the 3rd card you'll get 20 of. The idea being that the ones that have the 5 volume are the more prestigious prize cards for the winners and the second places and the fellowship awards, whereas the one with 20 in it is your kind of door entry participation gift. So I'm working my way through them all in chronological order of release, and I'm up to this one now on Uncanny X-Men. There you go, there's a quick catch up for anyone who's watching this one as the first one. So yeah, Avengers Disassembled, written by Brian Michael Bendis, drawn by David Finch. Well, I say that the main, because it was one of those massive, Marvel-wide crossover things that had loads of characters involved. I'm just focusing, for the purposes of this video, specifically on the miniseries that runs through the centre of the storyline that tells the kind of core central narrative of it all. And that was written by Brian Michael Bendis and drawn by David Finch. It was in 2004, and it was a bit of a kind of shake-up, really, to the Avengers sort of line up, the roster, a bit of a shake-up for Brian Michael Bendis to kind of take hold of it and put his stamp on it, and perhaps move it forward into a bit of a fresher space. At least, reportedly, whether it succeeded or not is a different debate for a different day. So yeah, let's get into it. I'm gonna, as always, take a walk through the cards, take a look at the game text, talk about how thematic those game texts are through the lens of the lore, the comic book lore that is the inspiration for this OP kit, and just let you in on the storyline, really. So spoiler alert at this point: if you've not read Avengers Disassembled, you plan on doing and you don't want it spoiled, bomb out now. I'll put a card up in the top corner, and you can go check out a different video instead, I suppose, or something. But stay on a Ministry of Dice one. Don't go running away to someone else's videos. Actually, while I'm on that point, if you're not subscribed to the channel, make sure you subscribe to the channel. It's never a better time to subscribe. We're doing our 200 subscriber goal giveaway as a bit of an incentive for those of you out there who we know are watching the videos but aren't currently subscribed. And give us a like if you enjoy what we're doing. Let us know. Let us know this is the type of content that you want to see. And again, I'll reiterate, I welcome some feedback on my new frames. Right, let's get into it, shall we? Right, okay, let's start with the 3rd card of the set, which is She-Hulk, Avengers Disassembled. She's a 5-cost fist, Avengers affiliation, obviously. And her game text reads, She-Hulk may only attack if your opponent has a character active. And so, in terms of, the story arc and the comic book lore, how thematic is that game text? Well, it's fairly thematic for She-Hulk in some respects. She's a kind of honourable character in the Avengers lineup, and she's been on the roster for many, many years. But I don't know if it's thematic in terms of the relationship to the story arc, the Avengers Disassembled story arc. So let me put it all in context for you, what's going on here then. So She-Hulk, Hawkeye, I think Wasp was there, Ant-Man, the Scott Lang Ant-Man, are all just kind of hanging out in the Avengers mansion. They're having a bit of a banter, having a brew and a chat when the intruder alarm goes off. It's like, whoa, the intruder alarm's going off. I mean, this is pages in, straight into the action on this one. It doesn't let up at all. And the Avengers rush out into the grounds. What's going on? Why is the intruder alarm going off? And Scott Lang, Ant-Man, encounters a deceased ex-member called Jack-O-Lantern, who Scott actually has an emotional connection to, because Jack-O-Lantern, as a hero, saved Scott Lang's daughter's life in a previous storyline that I haven't got time to go into right now. And so Scott's like, whoa, Jack-O-Lantern, what's going on? Look at you, like all zombified and stuff, wandering around. Are you all right? Jack, are you okay? You okay? And at that moment, bearing in mind we're like in the first 10 pages of the whole collection, Jack-O-Lantern explodes. And Scott Lang, Ant-Man, gets caught in the blast radius. There's a massive explosion. All the other Avengers are like, whoa, there's an explosion. They all rush, and they find the crater in the ground and just the remnants of their teammate Ant-Man, just sort of lying in the debris, the burning debris. Like, so 10 pages in, they've killed an Avengers. Like, whoa. So they're all like, panic stations, what the hell has just gone on? What is this all about? There's a big crater, there's been an explosion, Scott's dead? What? And so they start to kind of try to piece together what on earth was going on. While all this is going on, Iron Man, Hank Pym, in his Giant Man persona, is it Giant Man? Goliath? Giant Man? No, it's Giant Man. Memory's failing me. And Scarlet Witch are at the United Nations. Iron Man is giving a speech to the United Nations, to the delegates, and he starts to have a bit of a weird wobble. This is all happening in parallel to what's going on at the Avengers Mansion. And he starts to feel like he's drunk, like he's been drinking, which is not a good thing, because many of you will probably know that Tony Stark is a recovering alcoholic in the comic book lore. And starts to have a wobble. He gets like really leery and belligerent, and he starts like kicking off with the Latvian delegates, like, oh, you work for Doctor Doom and you're a nasty piece of work. Look at you sitting there in your suit thinking you're all part of the UN. And T'Challa, the Black Panther, who's a representative of Wakanda, of course, as their ruler in the United Nations, like, whoa, Tony, chill your beans. What's going on? You need to settle down, son. And Tony excuses himself, heads out into the corridor. Scarlet Witch goes, what's going on, Tony? He's like, I don't feel right. I don't feel right at all. I feel like I've been drinking. She's like, you've been drinking? He's like, no, of course I've not been drinking. I'm a recovering alcoholic. I've been sober for years. And in the meantime, Hank Pym steps up and tries to apologise to the United Nations delegates and recover the situation. Then we cut back to the Avengers Mansion. I told you, it's all action. It never stops, never lets up. I'm not even off the first card yet. And Captain America's turned up now, as the leader of the Avengers, and he's going, dudes, what is going on? Scott's dead. What's happened here? And while they're trying to piece together what's happening and why Jack-O-Lantern was like this exploding zombie guy who just turned up, who they knew to be dead, Vision rocks up in a shuttle. He kind of lands the shuttle. Vision rocks up. He's like, all right, dudes, and starts spewing these silver robot balls that turn into Ultron robots. Honestly, it is insane. And the Avengers are like, Ultron robots, and they just get into it, and they have a big old mad ruck. This is where I bring it back to She-Hulk and why she's such a relevant character at this point, and perhaps why they chose her as one of the OP kit cards. Because the She-Hulk also starts to feel not quite right. She is normally composed and has a grip on her kind of Hulk side of herself. And unlike Bruce Banner, who often, Hulk smash, starts to go a bit kind of feral and aggressive and, the more traditional sort of Hulk. And she grabs hold of the Vision and rips him in half. I'm not kidding, guys. I'm probably like 15 pages in at this point. It's insane. It's all action. It's non-stop. And as a reader who's been with the Avengers for a long time, you might... I've never been that huge an Avengers fan, but I could certainly appreciate at the time how a long-standing Avengers fan be like, what is going on? This is now a second Avenger. They just murdered a second Avenger. And not only that, he was killed by one of his teammates who's having a wobble. And, Tony Stark was having a wobble, and there's kind of this mystery unraveling underneath it all. So she goes all feral and aggressive, mental, rips him in half. Captain America says, you better, Avenger or not, I'll take you down after what I've just seen. And they all start fighting amongst themselves. It's just carnage, just absolute carnage. And She-Hulk manages to kind of get a grip of herself, and she starts to come back to kind of view herself. She's like, what have I done? What is going on here? This is just insane. And at this point, all this action has gone on. All this stuff has taken place. But we don't really know, why is it so relentless? What is happening? And there's this kind of undertone of, there's a driving force. There's something going on. Members of the team, She-Hulk and Iron Man, aren't right. They aren't right. And, and Vision and Scott Lang are now dead. What is going on? And at this point, I think I'll stop there and move on to the next card of the set to open up the next kind of act of the story. Right, okay then, cracking on. Let's go to the first numbered card of this particular OP kit, which is Hawkeye, Avengers Disassembled. I've still not got this lighting right, have I? Look, I need to figure out how to stop that. Anybody got any suggestions or recommendations? Please do get in touch and let me know. Also, I'm not sure my lamp is really helping me. I feel like I've given myself a weird, spooky glow. Anyway, Hawkeye, 4-cost bolt. And once per turn, during your main step, you may knock out a Hawkeye die you control. If you do, you may deal damage equal to his attack divided any way you choose to your opponent's characters. Now, that's a very thematic game text in terms of the narrative of the Avengers Disassembled miniseries story arc. And I'll explain why in a minute. But just to talk about the game text for a second, I used to love this card. Played with it quite a bit, actually, back in the day. And so how I forgot about the set, I don't know. I used to pair him up with my Johnny Storm. I like the fact that he was a KO that I could control, so I could knock out one of my own dice. He had low fielding costs, so the fact that I was KOing and refielding didn't bother me greatly. And he's not really that much of a slouch, particularly in terms of the attack stats. So he was quite nice for pinging off pests on the other side of the table, and then having him ready to refield next turn. And I used to pair him up with my Human Torch, Johnny Storm. So I'd field the Hawkeye, do a ping, KO the Hawkeye, shoot something that was annoying me, and then he was sat in prep ready to be refielded next turn to do another ping with Johnny Storm. So that worked out quite nicely. So let's take it back to the story arc then. So the dust starts to settle after the Vision / Ultron drone / She-Hulk fit, and we discover that Wasp, Janet Dine, has been injured, and so she's taken to hospital, and there's just debris and just destruction everywhere. Falcon's turned up at this point now. Tony Stark, after kind of scanning himself to see what might be going on, has turned up, and that kind of core unit of original lineup Avengers, you got Iron Man, Falcon, Captain America, Hawkeye, Hank Pym, they all kind of get together and say, what is going on? What is going on? Iron Man loops in the other guys to say, Hank Pym basically says, has he told you what he did? Has he told you? Has this idiot told you what he did at the UN? So he fesses up. He says, I feel like I've been drinking, but I promise you I haven't been drinking. And they're all like, well, have you been drinking, Tony? And he's like, no, I promise you I haven't been drinking. Falcon and Captain America are like, okay, we believe you, but Hawkeye, his father was an alcoholic. So he's like, no, I don't believe you, man. I've seen this before. So there's this kind of tension and anxiety in the ranks of the Avengers there. And they're kind of trying to understand what has gone on. So they're now kind of kicking off an investigation. Why is it we've got Tony having a wobble, She-Hulk having a wobble, Vision having a wobble? We've just had an explosion, Scott's dead, Vision's dead, there's been Ultron drones. There is something not right. There's something going on here. We need to get to the bottom of this. And so the kind of Avengers friends and reserve roster have all turned up to pitch in and try and help figure out what has been going on. Oh, momentarily distracted by a notification on my phone there. So Nick Fury's there and Captain America's there, and there's some X-Men and Spider-Man's turned up, and Luke Cage and Iron Fist and Captain Marvel. They're all the kind of reserve roster or the big name Marvel people are there, because obviously Ant-Man, comrade in arms, has died. Vision, comrade in arms, has died. There's been explosions at the Avengers Mansion, which is like their sanctuary. Janet Van Dyne, Wasp is in hospital. There's, their safe haven, the Avengers Mansion, has been under attack. So they're all there just like, what we need to figure out what is going on. But there's no time for getting into the investigations. This is a roller coaster ride. And as they're all together discussing what might be the cause of all this, frog in my throat, I'm so sorry. What might be the cause of all this? A fleet of Kree invasion ships turn up in the sky above them, and a load of Kree soldiers just drop onto the ground, and they just get into a big ruck with a ton of Kree soldiers, and more carnage is taking place. You got to feel sorry for New York, man. You got to feel sorry for New York. Anyone who's in an office building nearby be like, what is going on over there? Jesus. They must have thought they were under... Well, obviously they were under attack. The Kree fleet has turned up. And so it's all, battle. Nick Fury gets his laser guns out, pew, 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 starts shooting a load of Kree soldiers, and Captain America's got a shield out, and they're getting into it, and it is epic. All of them, Spider-Man's in the mix, Captain Marvel's in the mix, and they're just battling away. But Nick Fury's like, something ain't right here. This isn't right. Those ships they've got in the sky there, they could destroy New York 10 times over. Why are they dropping soldiers on the ground? Why are they going for a ground invasion? So he's thinking, this isn't adding up. This is all part of the bigger mystery too. There's more to this than meets the eye. And so they're just getting into it. And Hawkeye, in the middle of the battle, gets kind of caught out by a Kree soldier, and his back's burning, and he's about to die, and he's just like, I'm not going out like this, guys. I'm not going out like this. And he grabs one of the Kree soldiers, fires the Kree soldier's rocket pack off, and shoots himself up to the mothership and explodes the mothership. Just goes on this kind of last-minute suicide bid to take out the Kree mothership, and succeeds. And that, of course, is why I said the game text is so thematically relevant, because he sacrifices himself to take out a big chunk of the enemy force to save his friends, which is pretty much what the game text does. So we've now got another Avengers casualty, not just any Avenger, another A-list main character, been a part of the roster for decades, taken out. But upon the explosion of the mothership, the Kree soldiers, they're all like, oh, we need to get out of here. They all beam back up to the ships, and they piss off. And it's like, what is happening? What is going on? This is insane. It's relentless. The Avengers are knackered now. Some of them have had sort of 3 fights back to back at this point. They're just exhausted. There's weird things going on with Tony Stark, and there's weird things going on with She-Hulk, and there's casualties and injuries everywhere, and all this is going on. And they're all getting together going, what is this all about? There must be something behind this. It can't be a coincidence that all this is going on at the same time. And at that point, Doctor Strange turns up, and that leads me into the third and final card of the set. Right, okay, third and final card of the set, Scarlet Witch. She's a 6-cost bolt, and you'll notice that she's got the old Marvel Hydra villains affiliation now. That's interesting, isn't it? And her game text reads, while Scarlet Witch is active, all Avengers characters get -2 attack and -3 defense. Super thematic that. Let me explain why. So, where I've just left off, Doctor Strange has turned up, and he's like, dudes, folks, listen, tuning into the cosmic mystic powers, and magics are being abused. There's some weird magic shenanigans going on. And I think that may be the cause of all of this that you're experiencing. And the Avengers are like, we knew it. Our suspicions were correct. This isn't a coincidence. There's, the game is afoot. There's something taking place. There's something happening. And they start to explore the idea with Doctor Strange and begin to have a couple of realizations. And to understand those realizations, before I tell you them, we need to talk a little bit about some Scarlet Witch history. So Scarlet Witch, some of you may know, is Wanda Maximoff is Magneto's daughter. Member of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, then reformed, joined the Avengers, and as a member of the Avengers team, fell in love with the android Vision. They marry, and they have 2 children together, Thomas and William. But obviously, an android and a human can't conceive in the traditional way. They can't, there's no... Well, maybe there is a bit of slap and tickle, but they're not producing a baby out the other end of it, that's for sure. And so Scarlet Witch used mystical powers that she's tapped into to conceive and create the children. And that's, there's even more history there, because Scarlet Witch, in addition to being a mutant with this kind of hex power, reality-altering mutant ability, has also trained as a witch as a magician, and is familiar with the magical arts through the training of a lady called Agatha Harkness, who comes into the story in a minute. And so she's conceived the 2 children. Thomas and William, and they grow up, but things start to go seriously amiss in that space there. So the first thing that she's going through nannies like nobody's business, because what's happening is when the Scarlet Witch leaves the mansion and the nannies are left with the children back at the Avengers mansion, and Wanda's attention is elsewhere, the kids just disappear. They just go, and then the nannies are hitting the alarm, the kids are gone, and they rush back, and the kids are there because now she's back at the mansion, and so there's something suspicious going on there. But also, she's going through some trials and tribulations as Scarlet Witch. Vision gets kidnapped and taken apart by some science dudes who want to understand his AI and understand his powers and abilities, and so she's like, "What is going?" So that's serious, like husband's basically been murdered, and so they managed to she then goes through a whole thing of trying to get him to put back together, and when they do finally get him put back together, he's not right, he's cold, he's lost the emotional element that was given to him through a consciousness soul borrowing thing with the character Wonder Man. So then she goes to Wonder Man and says, can we do it again? Can we replicate the thing so my husband can get his soul back and be the husband that I love again, rather than this cold, soulless android that we're dealing with right now? And Wonder Man's like, no, I'm sorry, I just can't do it. I was forced to do it last time. It was a villainous act that did that last time, and now I have free will and choice. I'm not going to go into it. But also, he's in love with Scarlet Witch. Is honestly, this was going on like 20 years ago. So the Avengers Disassembled storyline is drawing upon this rich history of Avengers stuff around the Scarlet Witch character, and has been relevant for many, many years and continues to be relevant after the events of this too. So he's like confessing his love for her, not to her actually. He talks to Wasp about it, and there's all this kind of stuff going on. She's then she's dealing with the grief of her husband now being this cold, soulless android, and it's just getting laid on and laid on and laid on. Then she gets kidnapped, and these guys who kidnap her fuse her with this primordial ooze that then kind of taps her starts doing stuff with her magical abilities and sends her a bit kind of loopy. It's all, honestly, it's just one thing after another for Scarlet Witch. She just keeps getting laid on and laid on and laid on. And she's arguing with the Avengers because she's like, look, I'm trying to get some help to give my husband his soul back. Will you please help me out? And they keep getting distracted by other missions and other things that are going on. And then the kids get kidnapped by this demon dude called... what's the dude who kidnaps the kids? Honestly, it's quite a famous... his name is just completely falling out of my head. It's quite famous because there's a very famous picture where he's kidnapped the kids and he sort of fused them onto the ends of his arms, and he's got the kid hands. I'll put a picture up. But it's one of the most disturbing things you've ever seen. He's got the kids on the end of his hands. And so they go to him to try and save the kids anyway, and they're battling it out, and Scarlet Witch is like, oh, Thomas, William, save my children, please save my children. And they manage to save the children, but as they save the children, two revelations come to light. The first is that Scarlet Witch, when she used her reality-altering powers in conjunction with her magic talents to conceive the children, took two lumps of soul from the demon Mephisto and created them out of his soul, and he comes back to reclaim them. And Agatha Harkness has rooked up at this point to say, I think I know what's going on here. I think I know why the kids keep disappearing. I think I know why these demons want to have kidnapped the children. And at the conclusion of all this, and Mephisto taking his soul pieces back, the kids just disappear. They're gone. In effect, Scarlet Witch's children have died. And in her grief, she starts to freak out as any mother would. And so Agatha Harkness removes from Scarlet Witch any memory she has of the children. It's crazy, man. So she removes the memory that she has of the children. And then she's like, Scarlet Witch she has a bit of a wobble. She goes back to her dad. She goes evil again for a bit. There's like a whole thing. So all this stuff just lays on. Now let's come back to Avengers Disassembled. Now giving you that context. So magically created two kids. Those two kids died or disappeared or got reabsorbed by Mephisto. And her memory of them has been removed. But all the other Avengers, their memories haven't been removed. They know about this. They know about the 2 children and the whole thing that's been taken from her memory. Back to the present day. Wasp, at the poolside at the Avengers Mansion, misspeaks and says, I don't know, something like, I've thought about kids, but I don't think it's for me. I don't know how you did it. You had 2. And Scarlet Witch is like, what do you mean I had 2? What are you talking about? She said, oh, sorry, no. And Scarlet Witch starts to get a bit suspicious as to why she might say that and what's been going on. And has slowly started to reform the memory of the children in her subconsciousness, realise that things aren't right, that her 2 children, whether they were created by magic or not, were her children, and feels betrayed by Agatha Harkness and the Avengers, and has been using her reality-altering powers and her magic abilities to attack them. And not necessarily consciously either. It's all just sort of spilling out into the universe because, as you can imagine, through her grief and through her all these experiences that have just laid heavy on her, she's started to lose her marbles just a little bit. So they realise what's going on. The Avengers say to Doctor Strange, so can this all be taken back if that's what's caused it? If it's magic and it's this reality-altering thing, can we take reality back? And Doctor Strange's like, no, I'm sorry, dudes. Scott Lang's dead. The Vision is dead. It's happened for real. You don't understand how wacky things are in the magic realm. And they're all like, well, did we tell you Scarlet Witch has just recently been doing some more stuff with magic? He's like, no, what? And, they start to realise what's going on. So Captain America then says, right, can we track her down, please, Doctor Strange? Can we track her down? Let me go talk to her. And he goes to talk to Wanda, and she has created, she's in Agatha Harkness's house. She's created this lovely family scene at a table. The 2 children are there, and she's feeding them and saying, no one will ever take you away from me again, and all this kind of stuff. And she's got that kind of that motherly connection and that familial bliss that she wanted. Captain America turns up and says, Wanda, we've got history now. We've been in the Avengers together for a long time. I thought we were friends. What's going on here? And Wanda's just like, if you come to take my kids again, like you did the first time, because she blames them, and then we're gonna rook. It's going down. We're having a scrap. Do you understand? And he's like, get a grip of yourself. Come on, Wanda. We need to sort this out. We need to figure this out. And she just goes off on one. And she starts using her reality-altering powers, to all the Avengers, their kind of A-list arch nemesis, turn up and start fighting the Avengers, and they're just battling it out, and she's there just like all using her powers, and like she has just gone. Lost it, just fallen off the wagon completely, as you can imagine, through the kind of grief and the experience of having 2 children, having them taken away from you, and then realizing what everyone did, and they blanked your memory and removed the existence of your children from your mind and all that. She's just like super pissed, starts kicking off. Now, thankfully, Doctor Strange manages to intervene, because he's like, the Sorcerer Supreme, and manages to interfere with her, this weird amalgamation of her reality-altering powers and her magic abilities, defeats her. Captain America takes her and says, like, right, we need to get her reformed or get her help or do something. And at that point then, Magneto, her father, turns up and says, let me take her. This is X-Men business. He's mated with the X-Men at this point in time. This is X-Men business. We're going to get her some help. And Magneto takes Wanda away, takes her back to Professor X, which leads into a whole other huge event, all centered around Scarlet Witch, which is called the House of M, which has ramifications right the way through the Marvel narrative from that point on. But at this point, after all this has happened, the Avengers, they get together and they have a chat and they say, I just don't know if we can do this way anymore. I just don't know if we can. That was exhausting, They're grieving for their dead friends. She-Hulk's just like, I did not like what happened to me in that when I went all Hulk outy, and Captain America's like, yeah, maybe we do need to take a bit of a break. Captain Britain. How could I forget Captain Britain was on the team? Captain Britain's like, thank you so much for the time to work for you, but I just don't think I'm going back to Britain for a bit, kind of thing. And Wasp and Giant Man get back together. They've been divorced at this point. I just can't even get into that right now. Very famous storyline if you want to Google that. So they're going to make another go of it, and hence the name Avengers Disassembled, because they're just like, right, let's just take a break for a minute, catch a breath. That was so epically wrong, our friend and what we did, and we need to think about this and reflect and blah, 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 blah. And so they wind up the X-Men, and the final kind of X-Men wind up the Avengers. And the final scene of that is they step out onto the steps, and they see all the Avengers supporters and fans, the civilians who are there and have gathered with them to grieve over Hawkeye, to grieve over Ant-Man, to grieve over the Vision, and to support them in their moment of need. And that's kind of where it wraps up. Whew! And that was like 4 or 5 issue miniseries all that happened in. Right, let's move to the wrap up, shall we? Yeah, so super big event, super crazy, had ramifications, as I say, all the way through. The Scarlet Witch story doesn't end there. The X-Men fail to get her the help, and she uses her powers to alter the whole universe at that point, and this initiates what's called the House of M storyline, which is massive and a really good book, actually. I say book, a set of books. So check that out if you get an opportunity. There's not been an OP kit attached to that at this point either. So maybe Dark Phoenix Saga will bring something down the pipeline on that. But she alters all of reality and changes history. Bit kind of Age of Apocalypse, actually. But when that comes back, you might remember I was talking about Hope in some previous videos. And the Hope is part of the New Mutant generation following the House of M events. So, right up till today, that moment in history in the West Coast Avengers back in the 80s with the Scarlet Witch storyline and the kids and everything that happened there has, decades later, still impacting, the deep, rich history and lore and events of the Marvel Universe. So, yeah, the story didn't end there at all. Hawkeye, gets resurrected, and She-Hulk becomes a lawyer. So, so yeah, there we go, folks. There's the OP kit retrospective. Really dense one, that one. They're super convoluted, but it's a roller coaster ride. As I said before, it's just relentless in terms of the action and the pace at which it operates at. And Brian Michael Bendis is very well known for writing action. Actually, just incidentally, there's a comic book publisher called Icon. Although I think Image Comics might have taken it over. I'm not sure about the publisher, but check out a book called Powers that Brian Michael Bendis wrote and was drawn with a guy called Michael Avon Oeming. It's really, really good. Just as a side note, not related to this at all. I'm just putting it out there. I'm a big fan of it. I love the way the story of that unravelled. But there you go. There's the Avengers Disassembled OP kit. I hope you enjoyed that little walk through the storyline and getting to understand why these cards are the way that they are. Certainly the Hawkeye and the Scarlet Witch, you can perhaps see how thematic they are now and how they connect to the events of that narrative, of that story arc. Again, I'll reiterate, if you enjoy what I'm doing, make your way down, give us the like, and if you're not subscribed, subscribe to the channel. Give me some feedback. Is my new fame any good? And we'll be moving on to the first DC set next. That's exciting, isn't it? I've been waiting to do a DC set. So keep your eyes out for that down the line. But in the meantime, I'll catch you on a video, on a podcast, or writing a blog post somewhere soon. See you later, folks.